Hello, welcome to episode 1 of the Early Parenting Podcast. Today we are looking into how to settle your newborn baby. So if you currently have a newborn baby or you've had one and they're a little bit older now, you'll understand that newborns can get overstimulated, overtired super easy, and it can be really difficult to calm them and get them down into a nice calm and happy state. So today's episode is going to look into my top tips on how you can settle your newborn baby. Welcome to the Early Parenting Podcast, where we help you navigate the somewhat tricky world of parenthood so you can love the crap out of being a mum. I'm your host, Jen Butler, and I'm an early parenting consultant and a mama of 2 busy boys. Join me as I explore all things early parenting and deliver them to you in toddler-friendly, bite-sized lessons because, let's be honest, toddler is probably smothering pseudo-cream on the wall as we speak. I'll be dropping my hottest tips on baby and toddler sleep, feeding, boobs, behaviour, and so much more. Are you ready to find your flow in motherhood? Let's dive in. This episode is brought to you today by my free clean sleeping guide that I have on my website. You can access this baby at www.jenniferbutler.com.au. Now, guys, this guide is the first step I take parents through when I'm looking to help them improve their baby or toddler's sleep. You are literally getting free access to the first pillar of my CCC approach that I use to improve baby and toddler sleep. So head on over and download yourself a copy today. jenniferbutler.com.au/clean-sleeping. Okay, let's get into today's episode. Okay, so let's dive into my top 5 tips on settling a newborn. Tip number 1. Respect awake times. This is going to make settling so much easier. I have done an episode on tide signs in the newborn baby. So pairing this episode with that episode is going to help so much in understanding when you should be settling your newborn. A newborn is only going to be awake for a short amount of time. The younger they are, the shorter the awake time. The older they are, that begins to lengthen. When they're first born, basically they will just have their feed and fall straight back asleep. As they get older, you actually will notice some playtime or some awake time extends into that. The thing that happens is that around the 3 to 4 week mark, where your baby who used to just feed and fall straight back asleep is now having a bit of awake time and not just falling straight back asleep. And while parents are expecting that to happen, what the baby might be doing or what is happening to the baby is they're progressively getting more and more overtired, meaning that they're going to be harder and harder to settle. So the first 3 to 4 weeks can lull you into this false sense of security that they just fall asleep when they're tired. But for most babies, this isn't the case. So respecting their awake time and their tired signs is going to make settling so much easier. Tip number 2, swaddle your baby. I hear quite often that babies don't like to be swaddled. And I mean, every baby is different, but perhaps it comes down to the way they're being swaddled. Quite often I see that military straight arm swaddle happening. The thing with a newborn baby is they don't like to be swaddled like that because that's not their natural position. They are flexed by nature, developmentally, that is the way they're supposed to be. And in utero, their hands are to their heart. They're not straight down their sides like we try to swaddle them. I did a video that's on my YouTube channel that I'll link to in the show notes, demonstrating a wrap that I love called the angel wrap. So it is a hands to heart swaddle, and it does involve being able to keep those little arms contained, but doing it in a way that respects their natural posture. The reason I talk about swaddling is going back to the 4th trimester, which again, I've done an episode on, which I'll link to in the notes below as well. They've just come from an environment where they're contained all day, and their moro or startle reflex, where you see their arms come up and thrown up when they hear a loud noise or they're cold or they're moved quickly, we want that reflex to be contained. Otherwise, those flaying hands are going to wake them, and it's going to make settling so much more difficult. So keeping those arms contained in a swaddle is the best way that you can help to settle a newborn, because it's helping to mimic the life that they've just come from for the last 9 months. Tip number 3, offer your baby something to suck on. So whether that is a dummy, the breast, the bottle, whatever it is, sucking can help to lull your baby into a beautiful deep sleep. It is one of the easiest ways to settle a baby, and I am so pro dummy in the first 3 to 4 months. I think that they are such fabulous tools to help a baby settle. It's also possible to use your breast or a bottle, but it can also be good just to have something that's less reliant on you, so that it gives you a little bit of a break as well as a new mum. Tip number 4, fill their tummies. Hungry babies don't settle well. There is this real culture that we fall into a feed, play, sleep method, and that babies should either feed 3 hourly or they should feed 4 hourly. No, babies need to feed when they're hungry. And if that's only an hour after the last feed, that's okay. If it's 3 hours after the last feed, when usually they don't feed until 4 hours, that's okay. You're actually only setting yourself up for more trouble in settling if you're trying to follow strict feeding routines, especially in the early days and even as they get older. Because the reality is we are hungry when we're hungry, and especially for a newborn baby who has just come off a constant food source, they are not going to cope with having the feeling of hunger. They've never felt it before, and they're going to be pretty blown away by this new sensation, and they ain't going to be happy about it, and they sure as hell ain't going to want to sleep. So fill those tummies, mama. Tip number 5, rock your baby. So often I hear about parents worrying about whether they are creating a rod for their back in holding their baby or rocking their baby. My answer to that is no, you are not making a rod for your back. In fact, it is what your baby needs, and I talk about it in my episode on the 4th trimester. So make sure to check that one out, because it delves into all the tips around the 4th trimester. But this is something that your baby is going to love, is the motion of moving back and forth or being worn in a carrier or a sling. All of these things are beautiful for them and will help to settle your baby with ease, without much effort on your part, especially if you baby wear and pop them in a carrier. There comes a time when you can ease off this. I say that in the first 3 months, it's settle to sleep. Your baby needs complete reliance on you to settle to sleep. I'll talk more about this in another episode, the settle to sleep, and my different age groups and where they're at in terms of settling capability. But for now, understand that newborns need something or someone to settle them to sleep. I hope those tips have been useful. I would love to hear from you over on my socials at Jen Butler Early Parenting if they have been, or let me know other things that have worked for you. Anyway, I'll be back here again next week with a brand new episode. Catch you then. Thank you so much for joining me in today's episode, guys. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, please head on over to your podcast streaming app, whether that's Apple or Spotify, and leave me a review. I want this podcast to get to as many ears as possible so that other mums who might be having the same questions as you can find a little bit of information to help their parenting journey along. And you know what? While you're over there leaving a review, please feel free to subscribe so you don't miss a single one of my episodes. And don't forget to hit me up on my socials, Facebook and Instagram, at Jen Butler Early Parenting. Can't wait to bring you your next episode. I'll see you back here again then.